It is 1:30 and we're going to start our Board of Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, February the 22nd of 22. We'll start out with our invocation, and as I said before, Ottawa County seeks to be a welcoming place where you belong, recognizing that we are a county of many different faiths and traditions. Our invocation today is offered from one of those perspectives. I will now ask Commissioner Dannenberg to introduce today's invocation guest.
Thank you, Chairman Lipinski. It is with great pleasure I would like to introduce for invocation Pastor Art Van Walde, Haven Christian Reformed Church in Zeeland's pastor.
Let's all rise, please.
Before I say a prayer, I'm going to read a Bible passage because this is a passage that has helped guide me over the past few years, especially as we have been in turbulent times, as you all know. But it's one of these little gems in the Psalter that just focuses my heart, especially when you're in anxious times. David says, "My heart is not proud, Lord. My eyes are not haughty. I do not concern myself with great matters or things too wonderful for me. But I've calmed and quieted myself. I'm like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child, I am content. Israel, put your hope in the Lord, both now and forevermore." The beautiful image there is David says, I'm like a weaned child. In other words, Mom, I'm not going to you for milk. I just want to be with you because you're Mom. You'll take care of me. And the image is this: God, I'm going to go to you. And even though it's turbulent and even though there's anxiety and there's struggles, I'll sit in your lap and you'll take care of me because you are God. And that has been just a wonderful psalm that has helped give me guidance over our recent history. So let's pray. Oh God, I pray to you for this board. I pray that you give these commissioners guidance as they lead this part of your world here in Ottawa County. May all of us see that you are Lord and you are God, and that we need to put our trust and our hope in you, and you'll take care of our needs. So Jesus, as we do our work this day, may we put our trust in you, our Savior and our Lord. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Deputy Clerk Katie, will you call the roll, please?
Yep. Mr. Garcia,
Here.
Mr. Baumann,
Here.
Mr. Zylstra,
Here.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Here.
Mr. Meplink,
Here.
Mr. Terpstra, Mr. Hopler, Mr. DeYoung, Mr. Kyers,
Here.
Mr. Bergman, Mr. Fenske.
Here,
We have a quorum.
thank you. Do you have any presentations, petitions, or communications?
Got Jennifer on the agenda. That's it.
At this time, we'll ask one of our friends and folks that help us continue to be economically stable here in this county, Jennifer Owens, the president of Lakeshore Advantage, to give us the 2021 Industry Trends Report.
Excellent. Thank you so much, commissioners. I do have a PowerPoint. Is there a clicker slide? Is the presentation up, or I can just kind of wing it? Yeah.
You guys.
So while she's pulling it up, just want to give you a little bit of information about us. Lakeshore Advantage was established almost 20 years ago. And really, for the last 8 years or so, Ottawa County has been core to our work as we extended our organization from originally supporting the communities of Holland and Zeeland extending to Ottawa County for all of those businesses and local units of government. And then 3 years ago, we extended to Allegan County as well. The overriding goal for Lakeshore Advantage is really to maintain a robust primary business base at all stages of development. You might have heard this before, but I'm going to do it again. So what is a primary employer? Those are companies that export goods and services out of the region. They essentially make more here than the local community can consume. And as a result of that, those companies tend to pay higher wages. They create wealth and opportunities here for our local residents. So by keeping that base of companies strong, many of which are manufacturers, and helping them grow in the community really helps to create this robust business environment. So we're very grateful for Ottawa County's continued support, but we are funded by a mix of public and private sector investors. About 60% of our funding comes from private sector investors, of which we have about 130 of those. And then we have roughly 20 local units of government who contract with us for services. The majority of our funding always comes from the private sector, with the government being the strong second position, so we can ensure that we're meeting those companies' needs. So thank you for that long-term support. A key part of our work is business intelligence collection. So what does that mean? We sit down face-to-face with over 120 primary employers in senior level positions and ask them 30 of the same questions. This data really helps drive our work and make sure how we're investing, what our team is focused on, is based on real-time feedback from our employers and not on gut feel from one individual or one community who may have a strong position. So what I will do today is unveil that business intelligence data with you. If I know where I click to, there we go. You know who I am. And I talked about who we are and what we do. I'll unveil that data with you. It's over a period of time, over a 1-year period of time. The other thing I want to let you know is we look at that data at least monthly to see if there's any changes. We unveil it and share it once a year to the greater public. We never share anything individually from the company's information, but this allows us to really give you an idea of what we're looking at. Just so you know that Lakeshore Advantage has been a good investment for you, this gives you a look at our 2021 achievements as an organization. And so if you wanted to dive into any of those achievements further, I'd be happy to do that. We've been here many times talking about companies' opportunities and challenges. I won't spend too much time on that, but we're putting your investment to good work. Oh, I'm going to go back one. This business intelligence report could not be possible without our partners at the Greater Muskegon Economic Development Organization and the Chamber of Grand Haven, Spring Lake, and Ferrysburg. Both of those organizations contribute to our surveys as well and outreach. So thank you to them for being a partner in our work. So what does the data say overall? Overall, even despite COVID, we are doing pretty good as a community. Our economy has sprung back overall. Our employers are still seeing a positive growth trend. What we see when we ask employers about market share. So market share, what percentage of the market share do they own for their core product? We are seeing that percentage of market share increase. And that is great, or be stable. Now, sometimes with the market share, how companies increase their shares is through mergers and acquisition. So just this last year, formerly Herman Miller, now Miller Knoll, actually acquired Knoll Corporation, making them the largest office furniture producer in the world. That's one way a company can increase their market share. Other ways, we have companies who have been acquired recently. Hut Trucking, for instance, was just acquired by an out-of-state organization. So as companies grow and get bigger, we recognize acquisitions and mergers make sense. So when we're working with our employers, we're growing them at all stages of development, from startup to grown-up, recognizing that cycle of mergers and acquisitions could benefit, or in some cases, cause a threat to our community. We're also making sure we're maintaining partnerships with the senior level decision leaders at those organizations, either here or outside the state. So we're more than just a blip on the map or one of many manufacturing facilities. The second item we wanted to share with you is related to sales and new products and services. So overall, company sales are growing. We're seeing an increase in company sales that are stable. We're also seeing 87% of the companies introducing new products and services and capabilities. That's very key for us because if we see more of our manufacturers just staying stagnant and not introducing products and services or introducing or investing in research and development and training, that's a red flag that that company may be in a decline cycle. So the fact that 87% of those primary employers that we interviewed are introducing new products and services is a great thing. I still don't know where I'm clicking. There we go. Okay. So when we look at our community overall, I think many of you know that manufacturing is a very strong industry for us. When you look at the US average of manufacturing, it's about 10% of private sector employment. Here, we are significantly larger than that. Almost 44% of our gross domestic product is tied to manufacturing. And that's a great thing. That means we make and design things here. What's also very important for us is that our manufacturers serve more than one industry. And in fact, 70% of our manufacturers serve more than one industry, making them less subject to downsizing, declines, or shift share. So as you know, we have a great food processing base, office furniture, automotive manufacturing. So we're blessed to continue to have that diverse manufacturing climate. However, we also are still looking at threats. So for those companies who only serve one industry, a big chunk of those only serve the automotive industry. And that can be great, but that can also be challenging. So as we look at the automotive industry as a whole, it's going through a massive shift from electric vehicle, electrification of the vehicle. So by 2030, 50% of the vehicles that are produced in the US have to be electric. So what does that mean for our supply chain? That means many of our companies who service the internal combustion engine, of which the internal combustion engine probably has roughly anywhere about 100 parts, to transitioning maybe to an electric powertrain, which has 5 parts, is a very different animal. So we're watching those companies, we're outreaching them proactively to make sure that they are either embracing electrification or looking at new industries to serve. Now, as many of you know, we're starting to celebrate the strides forward with LG Chem looking at a massive expansion in the city of Holland. Unfortunately, it's in the Allegheny County portion, or fortunately for me, but for you, but still we'll all benefit from it. But those 1,200 jobs are so critical to have that electric vehicle engine produced here, because if we don't maintain a portion of that market share, the opportunities for our manufacturers to serve that market share gets less and less. So that's a big stride forward for us, but we're still watching those automotive manufacturing companies. The other thing I wanted to point out to you is that our companies are serving all over the world. So we have a big concentration of companies who have facilities in other countries and also in other states. But we look at our top international markets, Canada and Mexico, followed by Europe are kind of the 3 markets. But we service the world, we ship goods and products all over here. And that's a great thing. But that also puts us somewhat in a threat to the challenges. So what are some of the challenges we have? Well, number one challenge for those companies who serve all over the world or rely on that supply chain is really the disruption and shortages we've seen with the supply chain going forward. So when we look at the number one challenge for our companies right now who manufacture products and rely on the world for a portion of that product or sell it out, they're continuing to see supply chain challenges. Really a mix of what is not available. It continues to change over time. Semiconductors seems to be the largest lack of availability. We're watching those supply chain issues. We're trying to help our companies come up with solutions. But at this point, it is somewhat a waiting game as COVID continues to rake through other communities and lockdowns happen that prevent some of those goods and services to come back and forth. So that is a flag definitely for us overall. We're also watching our labor force participation rate. So for those of you who don't know, the labor force participation rate is the percentage of our community members who are working. The remaining percentage are those who choose not to work for, for a chunk of reasons. So if you look at Allegan and Ottawa County, about 100,000 residents are out of the workforce who may be able to work. Now, some of them may have disabilities, they may have childcare reasons or other barriers. But when we look at our companies, the number one challenge for them is recruitment problems in addition to supply chain. So we cannot find the people we need to fill this position. It's not surprising when we look at the population rate, we look at the great resignation, great retirement, but we would love to see that labor force participation rate continue to increase and get more individuals back into the workforce. So how do we do that? Well, there is no silver bullet to do that. And so when companies are challenged with this, a lot of things that companies need to look at is flexible schedules, hybrid working environment, wage premium increase. We're seeing just dramatic increases in wages overall, but it is a very competitive market for finding talent. And so what are those top areas of shortages for the county? So at this point, the majority of those top areas that we're seeing are those in the manufacturing sector and in the skilled trade. Now, as I look at these outside of entry-level manufacturing, many of them require education beyond high school. And so another barrier we would like to put forth is the lack of affordable community college or higher education in this community. As we look at that need and demand for more skilled trade training, the fact that our residents pay double the cost of residents in Kent and Muskegon County for community college is a challenge. We're going to continue to need to have access to higher education for our residents to improve their skills and to really take advantage of these openings. Now, what is the feedback on community services overall, which is, what you're all here to do. We ask about 20 different community services, how things are doing from an employer perspective. And congratulations, Ottawa County, you are the #3 community service ranked by our businesses who appreciate the hard work you do. #1, police, fire, and ambulance. I see the police chief is here, or sheriff is here, so thank you very much. It's recognized in our businesses say that's first class. The challenges we're facing, and these are services probably aren't, some of them aren't really overseen by a local unit of government, childcare, public transportation, and availability of housing. I commend Ottawa County for their work on the Housing Commission and continue to look at that. We are seeing availability of housing and new units and developments underway, but that still is a very big challenge for our employers trying to attract individuals to this area, and they can't find a place to live. Another solution that our team is really looking towards for our manufacturers is to help them embrace Industry 4.0. And that's really automation, computer-assisted robotics, and technology. The individuals that were lost during this time, not all of them will come back. And so the more ways that we can automate, embrace technology, and look at innovative ways to still meet customers' needs through automation, the better. What we have found overall is a lot of our small to mid-sized employers don't know where to start, have no idea what technologies exist or best practices. So what we continue to do is show those best practices. So we've worked with our partners throughout Grand Rapids to develop an Industry 4.0 success campaign. And so if you have a chance, go to i4.0.thecenterwest.org for success stories for small to mid-sized manufacturers in these counties who are embracing Industry 4.0. We also are doing an advanced assessment of our manufacturers to determine their readiness and what specific needs they have in place, and then we'll be rolling out in the next year solutions for those manufacturers as well. This also could potentially be applied to some of the service industries as well. So I saw recently a restaurant in Grand Haven actually implemented a robot for bussing tables. And it was a return on investment. It made sense to that company or that organization long-term. So these solutions are just not manufacturing solutions, but we're trying to do what we can to educate those companies on how to take advantage of them. So overall, what the future holds for the county, we'll see continual incremental growth. We think it's going to be small, mid-size expansions of those employers over time if we can continue to address the talent issues, embracing technology, and really welcoming people from all over the world to this community. And so with that, questions and answers, if I have time for our business intelligence report, any questions I can answer.
Commissioners?
So quick question, Jennifer. Thanks for coming. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
The childcare piece, what do you see in the short term on that? I mean, I'm on the housing commission and, we're working hard on that, but childcare is really tough. And I don't know what Lakeshore Advantage sees on that.
Yeah, so there's a pretty interesting pilots. There's a few corporations who are looking at on-site childcare centers as a way to attract talent in. I want to encourage that and figure out ways that we can encourage our employers to do more of that. The challenge why employers haven't done that sooner is the regulatory climate for childcare is very difficult. There is a lot of liability with childcare centers. So that's why we're not seeing a massive adoption of that. So I think that's one. Number two, there's been great strides forward on the state to help with compensation for childcare workers as well. They are some of the lowest paid positions. So we want to continue to recognize that and increase those overall skill sets. Ready for School is a great organization who's doing this tri-share pilot as well, which is a third paid for by the state, a third paid for by the company, and a third paid for the federal government for individuals who can't afford childcare. So that's another great stride forward we've seen in the last year.
Thank you very much.
One of the ones for opportunity was transportation. And I see Herman Miller is looking at that. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? Is that transportation mainly to go to a job or for other things? And we have Max in Holland,
Yep.
but not the rest of the county. So
Yeah, so that program is Wheels for Work, and it's delivered by a local nonprofit based out of Grand Rapids, and it is kind of like consider it an Uber for employers. So the individual pre-schedules when they need transportation to and from work. The company covers the cost, and the company allows that for an individual recognizing they have transportation issues and barriers. So I'm very excited about Herman Miller piloting it. It's been hard to get companies to take advantage of it, and we need more concentration so those drivers can be taking people back and forth. So hopefully it goes well for them, and we'll see more of our employers adopting it. Some of the public transportation options have been somewhat challenging, although important, is that if you're going to your job, the fact that a bus only runs every hour and you miss it by 15 minutes, you're then an hour late. It becomes harder and harder for someone getting back and forth from their job. Or if they're looking to drop their kids off childcare, then get to work, you're probably backing up at least 2 hours before you have to start your position. So I'd love to see more frequency in our public transportation routes as well.
thank you.
Other comments or questions, commissioners? Thank you so very much, Jennifer.
you.
It's really informative.
Thank you.
Great. As I have done before for other board meetings, I always have some chairman notes. And before we do public comment, I'm going to hit on a couple of those. One thing that we do well here in Ottawa County is preserve farmland. And I want to let the Ottawa County farmers have the opportunity to do so now through April the 30th. Applications have been sent out and are available. And one would need to just check the county's webpage, and they can then enter into the opportunity to preserve their farmland permanently. The other thing is it's not too far off to start thinking about volunteering your time in sprucing up our Ottawa County parks. Spring cleanup is just around the corner, and please consider donating maybe a few hours and keeping our parks beautiful, because we do love our parks here in Ottawa County. The other thing is as the thaw happens and freezing and stuff, we're going to be dodging potholes pretty soon in our county streets. And please help us identify those potholes that need attention by using the online request tool that the Ottawa County Road Commission has. It's ottawacounty.com, or calling the Ottawa County Road Commission directly and reporting those potholes. And then finally, 2 weeks ago, we heard from our emergency management director, Lou Hunt. And He has been trying to keep our commission and our administrator abreast of the monitoring of the ice jams along the Grand River, and specifically under the 231 highway overpass in Robinson Township. So far, the banks have been holding, and it looks like we've escaped some of the flooding areas. There's always those individuals that are kind of strongholds that don't leave their property, but most of the folks have moved out of there in anticipation of further flooding, but so far so good. So that's my comments for today, and we'll move on to the public comment section.
First, we have Jennifer Owens.
Hi, Jennifer Owens again, Lakeshore Advantage, Holland, City of Holland resident. I'm here on behalf of Holland Zealand Model Communities Initiative in support of the Ottawa County Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative. The Model Communities group was originally formed by Jim Brooks and Dick Hayworth to really bring public, private, and nonprofit sector leaders together. So we have 25 different leaders from the faith community, nonprofit community, and the government unit, and all say that the Ottawa County Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Office is very important for our community's future. This office was really a great step forward for our county to put us on the map of doing very innovative and important work as it relates to kind of welcoming people from all over the world. Specifically, I just wanted to share with you from a demographics perspective. So you may not know, but in 2020, half of those 18 and younger identified in the US as a racial or ethnic minority. As I mentioned, we're facing a huge talent challenge in our region, and the US as a whole is only expected to see a 0.1% population. So our population is almost at a standstill in the US. And so we have to figure out every way we can to embrace people from different cultures, ethnicities, and areas. And so as we look at our comparative communities not inside this region, some of them are more diverse and thriving, and many of them have a higher concentration of non-white residents than we have here in our region. So if we want to continue to be the fastest growing county in Michigan, we need to continue to embrace diverse leaders from all over the world. And Ottawa County Diversity and Equity Inclusion Office has been a great supplement to my work and to many of the local units of government. And we encourage you to continue to fund that important initiative.
Thank you.
Next, I have Dana Rokamp.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Dana Rokamp. My address is 10358 Summerwood Drive in Zealand, and I am here today to voice my strong support for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office in Ottawa County as a community member. While my husband and I work in other counties, Ottawa County is where we have chosen to live, to purchase a home and pay taxes, spend our money at local businesses, and invest our time and money in local organizations working to make this a better place to live for everyone. I have also volunteered the past several years with Holland Pride. I am a white, straight, married, upper middle class woman, and it is very important to me that I am doing my part to show my neighbors I care, that I see them, and that I want them to feel welcome and safe in Ottawa County. This is something I care deeply about, and I know that I am not always aware of my own bias with people who are different from me. I certainly don't expect everyone on this board to always be aware either. And that is why it is so important for us to have a DE&I office in Ottawa County. People and communities need to be aware of their own bias and seek education to be better. And we need organizations that can support the development and growth of its own community. As an active and contributing member to this county, I am so grateful that this Board of Commissioners approved the DE&I office just a few years ago. And I am grateful for the work they are doing in our community, including working to eliminate bias from county programming and decision-making, and welcome initiatives to attract, retain, and support marginalized communities. These are some of the things that make me proud to live here. As a citizen who lives in and invests in Ottawa County, I once again voice my strong support for the DE&I office and ask that this is something you continue to invest in. Chairman and commissioners, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you much, Dana.
Thanks, Dana.
Next, I have Mick Bricker.
Good afternoon. Chairman, Mick Bricker, and my address is 15656 Spring Lake. And updating you on the campaign. Obviously, I'm running. Looks like our 89th district is now the 88th district. So brings in Norton Shores. And I am the only Republican from Ottawa County in this district. So things are changing. I wanted to address Justin Roebuck and wanted to, because he's usually here. I don't know if things have changed where the county commission or the county clerk is no longer here. But I saw an article that he had written in the paper talking about some of the canvassers that are going out looking at in election integrity. And I just wanted to commend him for that. We have to make sure that as we're going through all this stuff, that we don't have the scammers out there. I was very fortunate to be able to go out with a group on Saturday morning who have been they've been registered and they're credentialed. They have the identification on them. And so I was able to stand back and actually monitor them as they were going door to door and just asking basic questions as far as who did you vote for? How did you vote? They have the records there. Then they take the verbal answers back, check off, check off, check off. So I believe that this is a great endeavor. I'd also believe we can partner both the public that's doing this and then with the county clerk to partner just to make sure that if there is any kind of voter integrity issues, that they get flushed out. And if there's not, then we can confirm that there isn't. So I think it's a great, great endeavor. Going forward, we have a lot more work to do on that. But that's basically what I wanted to say. Justin, wherever you are, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bricker.
Those are the only names that I have pre-signed up, but I believe there's other interest that just didn't.
Those
Harvey?
in the audience, go ahead.
You could state your first and last name in your township.
Yes, my name is Harvey Nichols. I live at 7513 23rd Avenue in Jenison. The VAERS report now lists 23,990 deaths from the COVID vaccines and over 34,000 adverse events for children at ages 5 through 17. The biggest enemies of we the people are the CDC, the health departments, who are vaccinating our children who have a 99.998% survival rate. The corrupt mainstream media, which spews lies and propaganda, and big tech that censors anyone who presents the facts and tells the truth about what's going on in our country. SARS-CoV-2 is a bioweapon that was created by Chinese virologists in the Wuhan laboratory. This gain-of-function research is funded by the NIH and NIAID under the direction of Dr. Fauci. Newly released documents from the Department of Defense verify that ivermectin and HCQ are known cures for COVID, and it is estimated that 95% of the deaths could have been avoided had early treatment using ivermectin and HCQ been used. So why is ivermectin not allowed to be used in our hospitals? Pfizer is expected to gain $58 billion in profits from these vaccines. Remember, a vaccine cannot be given emergency use authorization if there's a known cure. Christine Grady is the head of NIH Bioethics, which approves the EUAs for the FDA. She is the wife of Anthony Fauci. Do you know that the CDC has decertified the PCR test because it gives too many false positives and cannot discriminate between COVID, the common cold, and the flu? That explains why the flu deaths decreased by 97% in the last 2 years. Flu deaths were simply called COVID deaths in order to increase the death count and keep the people in fear. Scientific evidence now shows that there is no such thing as asymptomatic spread. So why do healthy people have to keep getting tested? You all swore an oath to the Constitution and have been elected to serve the people of Ottawa County and to defend our constitutional rights. What is your line in the sand where you will say no to these tyrannical agencies? Is it the vaccine mandates in order to work or attend school? Vaccine passports? Is it the seizing of bank accounts of anyone who protests or speaks out against this tyranny? Is it the arrest of the unvaccinated and isolating them in green camps? None of the mandates and recommendations of the CDC have improved our health. None of them, this is all about a nefarious agenda. And since Ottawa County Health Department keeps following all the recommendations of the CDC, you need to fire all the decision makers of the health department and replace them with individuals who will follow the Constitution and the actual science. Your line in the sand should have been the mask mandates and the constant testing of healthy people. I have the VAERS report again, and I also have a proposed indictment for the criminal activity that has occurred the last 2 years, submitted to the prosecuting attorney of this county. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nichols. Are there any others in the audience that would like to address the commission? Okay, seeing none, we'll close this part of the public comment section. There'll be public comments towards the end of our board meeting. At this time, we'll entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Support. Motion by Bergman, support by Dannenberg. Any further discussion? Will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Under actions and reports, consent resolution, Commissioner Dannenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion that we approve consent resolutions 1 through 2. Second.
There's a motion and a second been made. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Public hearings, none. Action items. And here I will call on Commissioner Bergman.
Okay. I'm planning a policy, the Port Sheldon Sports Complex Stormwater Easement. I move to approve the declaration of drainage easement.
Support.
Is there some explanation or a little summary?
So a developer is developing a condominium project in Hudsonville, and they want to construct and maintain a storm sewer that would take the storm water from that site and convey it to Rush Creek. The storm pipe and then the easement would clip the extreme southeast corner of our property there, would not impact any of the soccer fields whatsoever. And the easement would allow them to install the storm sewer at their expense and maintain it at their expense. And in exchange for that easement, they would convey $500 to the county, which would essentially offset our corporation counsel's legal fees to review the easement agreement.
Any questions for Administrator Shea?
John, a quick question is, are there additional assessments for the neighbors who might also be along there? You know, will they be assessed for any of the construction costs or?
I don't know the answer to that. Usually when a developer has those kind of costs, they do incorporate into the cost of development where those people would ultimately pay for it. I was most concerned that the county would not be paying
All right.
any
Okay.
part of this, and we will not be, and nor will we be responsible for maintaining it.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you.
Take the next one too. Okay. The next one is Ottawa Sands Development Professional Services to approve and the proposal for BIRIDS Design Group in the amount of $251,600 for project management, design, construction documents, and construction administration of the Idema Explorers Camp and associated development in accord with the funding received from Bill and B. Idema Foundation.
There's a motion and a second. If we need some further explanation, our Parks Director is here. Are we okay, gentlemen? Okay, seeing none, you call the roll, please.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Next, from Finance and Administration, Commissioner Baumann.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In regards to the fiscal year 2022 budget adjustments, I make a motion to approve the 2022 budget adjustments per the attached schedule.
We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Seeing none, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
sorry, missed one. Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes,
Motion passes.
Regarding the 2023 budget calendar, I would make a motion to approve the 2023 budget calendar.
Support.
we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes,
Motion passes.
Regarding the resolution to appoint a new equalization director, I make a motion to approve a resolution to accept Michael Galligan's retirement as Ottawa County Equalization Director effective June 30, 2022, and to appoint Brian Busker as Ottawa County Equalization Director effective July 1, 2022.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Seeing no discussion, call the roll, please.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes,
Motion passes.
Regarding the Parks Department personnel request, I make a motion to approve the Parks Commission recommendation to increase the parks seasonal employee wage scale for the 2022 season and to be adjusted annually in proportion to increases in the minimum wage at a cost of $65,068.
Support.
we have a motion and support. Any further discussion, Commissioner?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for Jason if he's available, or Kurt or whoever.
I'll take it.
Okay. You know, right, I was looking at the pay scale, and we are talking about seasonal workers, right? Is that mostly college kids or high school kids? Is there an age requirement for
It's
those?
mostly college students and retirees.
Okay, and I'm asking because I noticed that, you know, a lot of the salaries in there are under $12 or $13. And I question whether, but that's enough to be able to attract enough summer help. I happen to drive by a fast food place every time I go home, and those people are paying like $16 an hour.
And, you know, Human Resources did help us with the salary survey, and a lot of what those advertised prices you're seeing for wages are for shift supervisors and third
Full-time.
shift. And so those places that are advertising 16 often have about a $12 starting wage.
Okay,
And so
we're-
we did do the research and we did come up with, this seems to be right in line with our local competitors and with Michigan park systems as well.
All right, fantastic. Thank you.
Any further questions? You call the roll, please.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes,
Motion passes.
Regarding the public health personnel request, I make a motion to approve the request from public health to split one full-time equivalent benefited community health nurse position into 2.6 full-time equivalent part-time benefited community health nurse positions at a cost of $27,318 to be paid out of the 2022 Public Health Fund balance.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none?
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Motion passes.
You need a break, Commissioner
No, I'm
Baumann.
good. I'm good. We'll muddle through it. Regarding the Human Resources Personnel request, I make a motion to approve the request from Human Resources to add one full-time equivalent Assistant Human Resources Director at an unclassified pay grade 16 at a cost of $35,606.
Support.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, you call the roll?
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to question Marcy on this. I'm just wondering, how are we doing with, I'm gonna say shortages of employees? Where are we as standing as the county,
Right
including
now,
the sheriff's department?
we're in the same boat as every other agency out there, especially in regards to the sheriff's department. I think sheriff, we've done over 150 background checks since you've been sheriff. So it does keep us very busy. We are starting to catch up a little bit, but we've never had in the ranges of the open positions that we have currently. We're ranging around 60 open positions at all times. So I do know there's another action item coming up that will hopefully help with that. And that is some of the reason why we're looking for another resource in human resources. Currently, there are times where up to 5 of us are sitting in interviews. The job market's just not the same as it used to be. So we're trying to be extremely creative, and we're trying to market Ottawa County and still get the high caliber of employees that we've always had. So.
You're number one recruiter, you said.
Yes.
Maybe a month ago left.
Correct.
And have we have any luck finding someone in that caliber?
Recruiters are very hard to come by. So this is why this action request, I'm looking, we also needed the assistant HR director and a recruiter. As you see, I'm giving up the recruiter for now to get someone else in there. We've found that recruiting position, we can't find anybody that's got the experience for the position. So it is definitely a high commodity right now to find recruiters.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent question. Very good. Appreciate it.
Regarding the Economic Development Corporation proposed bond project, I make a motion to approve a resolution approving the project area, establishing the project district area, and confirming the appointment of 2 additional directors to the Ottawa County Economic Development Corporation Board in order to initiate the process of issuing limited obligation revenue bonds not to exceed $75 million for the benefit of the farmstead by Resthaven project located in the city of Holland.
Second.
If Becky's here, they'll provide a description for this request.
Thank you. Ms. Huntington?
Good afternoon.
Yeah, before you on this action item is our third bond project. As you know, we organized many years ago an Economic Development Corporation. Those are enabled by statute to do many, many things. One of those things is to issue limited obligation refunding and revenue bonds for projects such as this. We've done two projects in the past, one in 2011 and one in 2015. Those for Hope College and North Ottawa Community Hospital respectively. The project you have before you today is a project done by Resthaven, who has several facilities in the Holland area that offers varying levels of senior living and assisted living types of facilities. The project they're looking to do is located in the city of Holland. The site plan has been approved by the city of Holland. The city of Holland is in support of the project. They're seeking to fund the entire project not to exceed $75 million through these limited obligation bonds. It will have the effect of creating 128 additional slots for seniors of varying levels of needs and care. They can graduate through their system. It will create jobs in the area. We do have Seth, who is with the Resthaven project, here to answer any questions you might have about that. Just some things that come up right off the cuff. These bonds will be entirely the obligation of Resthaven. In the event of default, the county is not liable for those in any way, and they're not backed by the full faith and credit of the county. It is also noteworthy to state that the bond counsel that's required to push this many papers through projects like this is also covered by Resthaven. Craig Hammond from Dickinson Wright is our bond counsel. He is there to cross all the T's and dot all the I's, and his fee for services will be covered by Resthaven as well. And additionally, the county is authorized and will charge a 1/4% issuance fee to Resthaven, and that will be paid to the county. So on a project the size of this, it could be, north of $180,000 for that fee that will come to the county for running this process through. And then just as this goes forward, if the commissioners decide to approve the project here today, the next thing that will happen is you will see me back here asking you to establish a public hearing. And then a couple of weeks after that, we'll hold a public hearing to review a project plan that will be submitted by Resthaven. It will lay out all the details of the project. The EDC and the city of Holland will have already approved and recommended that project plan by the time you see it here. And then that last step, which we would think is roughly in the latter part of April, will be the EDC meeting once again to pass the last resolution that will be to authorize the issuance of the bonds. And at that point, we would close towards the end of April, and then they would start the project, which is located behind Van Raalte Park and Meyer on 16th Street there. So there's a big wooded area. It kind of backs up to GVSU if you're familiar with that area. So at this time, I'll entertain any questions you might have regarding the project.
I'll just also add, it doesn't count against the county's debt limitation as well.
That too.
There's a question. It could be a super question, but it says, and confirm the appointment of 2 additional directors. Explain that to me a little bit.
Yes, that is a good question. So the project plan, all the elements of that plan are laid out in statute. So that plan is designed and you have to meet all these things that are required. One of those things is to appoint 2 additional directors, and we call them neighborhood directors. So that while the EDC is entertaining this project, there are 2 folks that are in the immediate area of the project that have knowledge of the project that could be impacted by the project, who are allowed to review, weigh in, and be a part of the board during that time. They'll remain in service of the board until the construction and the project is wholly complete, and then they will not have to serve any longer. So we will appoint them here today, and you have them in your packet. They're 2 very good individuals for this project. Glenn Lowe has a history of donor development. He's very familiar with Resthaven as an organization. He's from the local area. And then Mark Vanderploeg, who's from the city of Holland. He is in economic development. He's seen the site plan. He is, again, right from the local area. So they're good individuals to serve in that role.
Thank you.
It's a good question, not a dumb question.
Any further questions for Becky?
I had a couple of questions, but Becky did an excellent job of answering all of those. So thank you for an excellent job.
You're welcome.
I don't have any questions. I just have a few comments.
Yes.
I've known Resthaven very long. I've had several relatives that have been there and over the years have stayed in their facilities. I have a brother that is in their facility, dementia facility on 40th Street. They have a beautiful facility in downtown Holland, a new one coming up as well. So there's two of them in downtown Holland. And the Farmstead, this organization does a great job of taking care of older people or people that have some issues with the health. Over the years, they've done a wonderful job in our community. So I'm happy to support this in any way that I can. Thanks.
Well, that's an excellent comment, and their reputation does go before them because they do have a waiting list for this facility already. And it has already had the effect of some folks have gone through with sales on their homes, knowing that they are, in the queue to live in this new facility, and they're renting their homes back from the folks that bought them until they can move in. So people are ready for this and want to be a part of this facility.
How long is that waiting list?
I'd have to defer to Seth on that, but you might want to get on it, Commissioner.
I like it. Very good.
Thank you.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Okay, seeing none, will you call the question?
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the courtroom presentation solutions, I make a motion to approve the authorization to purchase and install 10 Wolf Vision synapse to be deployed in the 6th Circuit and probate courtrooms and 4 hearing rooms in Grand Haven and West Olive at a total cost of $82,837.50.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the contract for financial advisor for the issuance of bonds, I make a motion to approve the proposed agreement with MFCI LLC for financial advisory services for the issuance of bonds.
Second.
You have a motion and a second.
So
John?
the county's had a contract with Robert W. Baird Company for our financial advisory services, and we use a company like that when we are issuing bonds. And the person that we've been dealing with from the beginning with Baird is Warren Kramer. He has since switched from Baird and Company over to MFCI, and we're recommended to continue that relationship with him. We can terminate our agreement with Baird with 10 days notice, and the contract with MFCI would be for the same fee that we would have been paying under Baird. So there's no increase in cost to do that.
And Warren has done a great job for us over the years.
Okay. You call the roll, please.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding the temporary non-benefited wages, I make a motion to approve the request from Human Resources to match all temporary non-benefited positions who have a benefited equivalent to step 1 of the correlating grade on the universal pay scale.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, gentlemen? Seeing none, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And finally, regarding the adjustments to compensation for benefited employees, I make a motion to approve the issuance of a one-time payment to benefited employees excluding elected officials in the not to exceed amount of $2,000 and to increase wages in the 2022 wage scale by 2% for all benefited employees excluding elected officials.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. would you like to kind of roll with this a little bit?
Sure. And I thought Jennifer Owens did a good job explaining the challenges in today's job market in the private sector, and we share those challenges here as well in the public sector. We have, and I think Commissioner Dannenberg might have made reference to it, we've lost employees to other jobs that paid higher or had sign-up bonuses. And, as a county, we provide services to people. We don't make products, and we need really a dedicated group of employees to provide those services. So there's also a pretty significant cost when we lose an employee in terms of recruiting, training, hiring, loss of productivity, and so forth. Then we conservatively estimated it cost over $20,000 for every employee that we lose and then have to rehire a new employee. So we took a look at this, and we're recommending a couple things here. One is to provide a one-time payment to employees in the amount of $2,000 if they've worked the entire two-year duration of the pandemic so far. And if they've worked for, say, 1 year, they came a year later, it would be $1,000 one-time payment, and we would prorate that. So if someone's has worked 15 months of the last 2 years, they would get, I think it's $83 times 15 months. And that would be for benefited employees, excluding elected officials. And then the other thing is, in talking to our consultant that did our wage study that we implemented earlier this year, he indicated it's almost already out of date because we did a 2% wage adjustment, and many other employers are doing 4%, if not higher. So we're recommending to increase that wage scale by an additional 2%, not retroactively, but going forward. And again, that would be for benefit employees, excluding elected officials. This would cost about $2.5 million, with over half of it, about 60% of it, coming from vacancy savings. So, with the challenge we've had in hiring employees that are in the budget, we're not spending money on those. So we can fund 60% of that with our vacancy savings. And then the rest can come from our ARPA lost revenue savings, as well as Medicaid and some grant and millage funds as well. So what we're hoping to achieve here is to at least maximize the potential of retaining our employees. We have a great set of employees here, and the better that we can do to retain them, the better we can do in terms of achieving our mission of excellence in providing cost-effective delivery of public services.
You said that it would cost $20,000 to train an employee and keep them going. Would it be fair to say that correction officers or road patrol would even be greater than that with the amount of training that they would have to endure?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And again, it's more than just the hiring and the training as well. I mean, there's an inefficiency that you have when you lose someone and someone has to fill in, and if someone has to fill in and now work 2 jobs or 3 jobs just to kind of keep things under control, you do lose some efficiency there. And then there's just cost of hiring. If we use services like NeoGov, and we pay fees to do that, and then the additional time to run the background checks and training. So it's a pretty significant disruption in how we provide services, and there's a cost to that. But I would agree with you. Some of our positions require even more training, and so when those people leave and we have to fill those positions, that's an even bigger disruption.
I know that we've met in small groups and kind of talked about different varieties and how to go about this and different things. But I know that Marcy and the HR team has really tried to come up with some pretty solid ideas to retain our employees, and also to maybe not lose employees to neighboring counties.
Yeah, and Marcy and then Karen in fiscal services have been really working hard and have been wonderful in coming up with these ideas and vetting them out and determining the cost. So kudos to them, because they've put a lot of hard work into this.
Commissioners, questions?
Yeah, just a quick question, John. The remaining amount, the 1 million or 1.2 million, do we kind of have a breakout of how we're going to fund those? I mean, ARPA versus CMH Medicaid grants or millage, or is that kind of a moving target?
To the greatest, ARPA would probably come in last. So
Right.
if we have employees that are paid with Medicaid, we're going to use that to pay Medicaid, or if any are covered under grant funds, we can certainly use those before we use our ARPA lost revenue savings. That's sort of our last.
So we don't really have, say, 600,000 here, 400,000. Is it just kind of a?
Karen, I know Karen had broken that out, and I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
What that percentage is.
Sorry, Karen.
No, it's okay. I do have it broken out.
Okay.
There'll be a budget adjustment coming forward upon approval, but the most significant of those would be the Medicaid for CMH, and there's a few grants.
Okay, so the bulk of that 1.2 will be coming from that.
Yes, I think in the end it was about 300,000 from ARPA,
Okay. Okay.
just over.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Commissioner Mepling.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, question for John. So this would be for, and I just want to be clear, this would be for retention of current employees, not as a reward for past employment during the pandemic. This is to retain and stay working. And then the second piece of that is, if that is that way, is there a way that we can also, and I don't even know if this is possible, but I hate to give out the bonus and then have somebody say, thank you very much, I'm gone. Is there a way we can have a year or something like that in exchange?
Well, we talked a lot about that. I mean, the primary goal here is an effort to retain employees because it's just disruptive. I'd be lying to you if I said, hey, I can give you 100% guarantee that no one will take the money and run.
Right.
So that is a possibility. I think just from the mechanics, if the board does approve this, I think we'd be looking at these payments going out in April, and obviously someone would have to be on the payroll at least through April. And out of, I think we have roughly 850 full-time employees, excluding part-time and seasonal. So maybe there could be a handful that could take up and leave. But I think with what we're trying to do with not only this, but we've also really tried to be flexible with working conditions in terms of remote work, working from home. And so we have some departments that really have almost had their employees work from home from the beginning. Others just can't do that because of the nature of their jobs, and others are more of a hybrid, a mix of the two. So we're looking at strategies, not just with compensation, but other things in an effort to make this an appealing place as possible to work. Because someone could leave and now they could go get another job, and whether it has the same environment as here, who knows?
Could this, and maybe I'm sure this was discussed and maybe not, but is it something that could be
we
maybe split in half and you get half in April and then the other half in June or July or something?
We did actually discuss that, and I guess the consensus after a lot of discussion was to do it the way that we're proposing to do it. Okay. Just because, and just talking to the different departments, we've been operating pretty lean in terms of the number of employees we have, and felt like this would be a better initiative to bring to them sooner rather than later.
Okay.
But that was discussed, and the consensus was to do it this way.
Okay.
Commissioner Garcia.
Yeah, a couple of questions, John. So the 2.5 million is the total or possible total for not only the 2,000, but also the 2% increase as well?
Yes.
Okay, how do you deal with the 2% with your union groups? Are they willing to take the 2%?
Well, yeah. Well, and this is kind of what we did with our wage scale, our 2022 wage scale. We still have union contracts. One of them's up at the end of this year, and the other, I think 3 are up at the end of 2023. We could have just said, we'll wait till those contracts are up and negotiate that along with any other provisions. We approached the unions with the wage scale and said, look, we'd like to implement this wage scale now, give you more money, and we'll do it in the form of a letter of understanding. We're not going to open up the contracts and negotiate everything else, but we're willing to do that. And so in this particular case, we would do the same thing and approach them and say, you know, we'd like to provide this additional compensation, do it in the form of a letter of understanding without opening the contracts. If for some reason they say, no, we want to negotiate, we'll just wait for the end of the collective bargaining agreement term. But, you know, we had great discussions with the unions before a few months ago, and they were great to work with. And I think we'll be able to handle that with this as well.
Okay.
Any other further discussion, gentlemen? Can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Regarding appointments from the Talent and Recruitment Committee, Commissioner Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like, regarding the Land Bank Authority, I'd like to make the motion to nominate Daniel Strigwerda to fill one city village, civil, I think as well, representative vacancy beginning immediately and ending December 31st, 2022.
Support.
Any further discussion? Can we do this by just a voice vote?
Shall we do all three of them then at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we can do it.
Okay, then also regarding the Community Action Agency Advisory Board, I'd like to make the motion and place the name of Molly Brower to fill one public sector vacancy beginning immediately and ending December 31st, 2024.
Is there a support?
Support.
Okay. Regarding the Veterans Affairs Committee, I'd like to make the motion and place the name of Randall Cope to fill one war veteran vacancy beginning immediately and ending December 31st, 2024.
Support.
Okay. All those in favor of the recommendations from the Talent and Recruitment Committee, along with the support, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Discussion items. Mr. Commissioner Meppelink.
Mr. Chairman, thank you from administration. I'd like to move that we go into closed session for the purpose of discussing the purchase or lease of real property pursuant to OMA Section 8D.
Support. This has to be a 2/3 roll call. So if you will call the roll, please.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Dannenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Meppling,
Yes.
Mr. Baumann,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Fenske.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Do we go into the secret room back there? All back and we're ready for our administrator's report.
Glad you're ready.
That's you, John.
Next time I'll print this because I have it on my. Well, I'll go off memory, which is so dangerous, but so we're having a meeting tomorrow on the Family Justice Center budget. We have validated our soft costs, but we're waiting for Granger DLZ to update their construction costs. And so hopefully we're getting pretty close to finalizing the budget on that. Speaking of our ARPA task force is meeting next month. We did receive responses back on our proposals for bucket managers to oversee each bucket, the broadband bucket, affordable housing, well, not so much broadband, but the affordable housing bucket, human service bucket, and the business need buckets. So we'll be evaluating those proposals and bringing that before the task force in March. Just a reminder again, the MAC Legislative Conference is March 21st through 23rd in Lansing. And as a result, we have rescheduled our board meeting from Tuesday, March 22nd to Thursday, March 24th. And we're also looking at scheduling a local legislative forum. I don't think we had one last year, maybe the year before because of COVID, but I think we're looking at some dates in April or possibly early May. I've been working with public health and fiscal services and corporation council on drafting an amendment to our solid waste management plan. We're looking to, among other things, establish or revise the fees that we're currently collecting to administer that solid waste management plan, and also cover the cost of our Southwest Ottawa landfill and some of our recycling centers as well. So we're hoping we're almost to finalizing that and getting an informal blessing from Eagle before we start the formal, I think it's 12 to 18 month process to go through that. And then I think Regina just sent out that she has finally been able to find a common date among everybody for our strategic planning session on Friday, June 24th at 9 a.m. At the Weaver House. So that's what I got.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any general information, comments, meetings attended? You just
Yeah, I
came
can
back, right?
start. I spent a week in DC last week and then 5 days, matter of fact, and then we had President Biden spoke to us and pretty much all his administrative staff was there. A lot of information on the American Rescue Plan. Some of the key speakers were talking about, wait for the next for the second and third quarter to come out because there's between broadband and water and sewer infrastructure, there's going to be a lot more money coming out that maybe we can help with this this American Rescue Plan to match some of the monies. That was one of their big discussions. So huge thing on opiate yet. We had the record deaths over 100,000 people now this year in the United States, and 35% of that is from doctors. So I mean, it's something that they keep working on, and they're spending huge amounts of money, for rehab and try to help these people, but it doesn't seem to make much difference. And they figured probably part of it was just because of COVID. It didn't help them either. They're reaching out for stuff that they can't find. So really good, interesting meeting. It's fun to serve on the NACO board. We do a lot of in-house discussion of what goes on there, and so I will keep you informed any way I can. So thank you.
Great. Thanks for representing us. Any other meetings? Okay, we'll go into our second opportunity for public comment. I don't know if we have anybody on Zoom. Oh, this is a tag team?
Oh, tag team.
Oh, boy.
I don't think he has a gun on him today either. So I just wanted to take a moment to really say thank you to the entire board. I know there's lots of big decisions being made, and sending forward that action item this week for our employees is going to go a long ways. We have great employees working in Ottawa County, and I just really appreciate it. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Sheriff? that's a tough one to follow.
It is, and I'm going to
She
echo
did it
what
in
Marcy.
She did it in about 15 seconds. You know.
Well, as an elected official, it's probably going to go a little bit longer. I'm sorry. So really just to echo what Marcy just said. I think most of you know that last week, Thursday, 3 names, Josiah, Jeremiah, and Jerome Gonzalez. Our thoughts and prayers go out with the Gonzalez family and the loss of their 3 children in a fatal traffic crash on James Street in Holland last week, Thursday. But I also want to commend here in front of this board today and to the community. 6 deputies from the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office were on scene within a minute. And all 6, I'll read their names to you in a minute. Deputy Porter, Deputy Roloff, Deputy Quinn, Deputy Zurup, Deputy DeYoung, and Lieutenant Nick Knott. These 6 individuals, without hesitation, when they arrived on scene, jumped into the pond. Ice cold water, 23 degrees outside, spent a great deal of time not giving up to get those children out of the car and get them out of them car seats, and then to provide medical first aid with the paramedics that were on scene. Also, I have to acknowledge Holland Township Fire Department for a job well done. But again, to watch these 6 deputies, again, without hesitation, risk their own lives to make an effort to save the lives of those 3 children. This board, this community, and myself, extremely proud of these 6 deputies. So again, just wanted to acknowledge that to the board. If you have a chance, if you know any of these deputies or see them, thank you, it'd be nice. So it's been tough for those 6, and they're getting through it, and we'll continue to move forward. And all 6 are back to work, but we'll continue to serve this community with that type of service. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment from
None on Zoom.
the audience? Harvey,
May I have a few more minutes or else I'll do it next meeting?
you can have a few more minutes.
Thank you and happy Tuesday. I don't know if you know that, 2-2-2-2-2. Okay. I am very passionate about, I guess I'll say, not vaccinating our children. And I don't think, unless you're listening to or reading the back channels that I do, and just hear the news, no one's talking about the fact that there's a 5,100% increase of risk of death from the vaccine than from COVID. And yet is being pushed. Israel is the most vaccinated country in the world. They're now on their 2nd booster, they're 4 shots. Israel has the highest case rate, the highest death rate. 80% of the people in serious conditions in Israel have been fully vaccinated. And I mention that because I read the Ottawa County Health, Lisa Stefanowski's reports, the COVID-19 updates, and they keep talking about these people in the hospital here in this county mostly are unvaccinated. I hope you ask her, what is your definition of what you call unvaccinated? Because the CDC redefined vaccine that as being 14 days after the 2nd shot. I parsed that data that I gave you. 86% of the people have died within those 14 days. In fact, 50% die within the 2 days. Now that's just the deaths. It's not all the effects that end up in the hospital. I just found out this morning that in January 4th, the CDC has redefined the definition of vaccination again. It's now in 14 days after the 1st booster. So when she tells you that we have all these unvaccinated patients in the hospital, ask her, how many shots have they had? We need to get the truth. You guys can't make good decisions if you don't have the truth. And that's why I'm here. And I'll probably keep coming back and bugging the heck out of you. And I appreciate your service. Again, happy Tuesday.
Thanks, Harvey. If there is no other county business, we'll stand adjourned.